Let's see, got a little slideshow here planned out. It ended up 3-1. Goals from Rashitska, Mane, Salah, and new boy Diaz, which was really exciting. But let's go over the general takes for a minute. Probably the biggest storyline going into the game was the changed lineup. Due to the schedule congestion. They just had the Champions League game versus Inter. They've got another midweek game with Leeds coming up. Leeds are one of the teams that pretty much covers the most distance, pretty much in the whole, maybe in all of Europe, but certainly in the EPL. And then they have the Carling final with Chelsea. So a lot of games and coming up, and it's good to keep the squad fresh. So it was good to actually see Robertson and Trent Alexander-Arnold get some rest. So that was a positive. Unfortunately, Jota and Firmino, they were announced untimely injuries. So not sure what the time frame is, but Klopp mentioned that he doesn't think Firmino's not too bad, but he doesn't think Jota's going to be able to make the Carling final. So we'll have to, or Carabao. I think it's Carabao now. So we'll have to maybe follow that. And really, the main storyline was maybe Luis Diaz debut. And other takes is Liverpool did concede first, unfortunately, and towards we're starting to kind of see a little theme emerge that Klopp is starting to maybe get more comfortable changing games with his subs, because we saw basically the same thing happened in the midweek versus Inter Milan, where his second half decisions really did take over the game and change it, because all the goals did come after he made these subs. And so he took off Oxlade-Chamberlain and Naby Keita to bring on Thiago, and to bring on a fourth attacker in Divock Origi. And in a weird way, he actually changed the shape too. It switched from being mostly a 4-3-3 into really a 4-2-4 when Liverpool had possession. And so we got to see what I like to call the death formation. So that was pretty fun. Some player ratings, or maybe players that really stood out. You got to talk about Alisson with the assist. I think that's now basically he's got a goal or assist for the last 3 seasons, which is pretty remarkable. He also made some pretty nice stops as well. He's really good at closing people down to cut off the space. So he's actually fantastic in 1v1s, and I think maybe his presence actually forced Piqué to have the miss that he had, because he was in on goal in that first half. Joe Gomez was played at right back, and that's not necessarily, I don't really think that's his best position, or really a position he's comfortable with. So I gave him a 6.5. It's maybe a little harsh. I did think he got better or more comfortable playing as the game went on. He actually ran back and saved Joel Matip's bad back pass. When the score was still 2-1. In that movement, which actually ended up leading to the third goal. I don't think it's too harsh on him. Matip had a pretty decent game, but again, he did have that near disaster. Virgil was good as always, and Tsimikas is kind of underrated, to be honest. He rarely puts in a poor performance. Just he's got Robinson in front of him, but I thought he played well. And for the midfield, I gave Ox a 6.5. He did offer width when he played, but he was through on goal towards that first half, and he really had 2 chances to at least make the keeper work, and he hit it over the bar both times. Henderson, I thought, was excellent. Frankly, him being played in that 6th role when Fabinho hasn't been able to go or been rested, it's maybe been Liverpool's best performances, to be honest. I can think of Manchester United and Watford, where I can't really explain it, but it was just it seemed Liverpool's midfield just ran smoother. It just seems they controlled more of the game and created more chances. And so and weirdly, I think Henderson's actually feels more comfortable playing there, because you don't see him nearly playing as many balls over the top or trying these long passes in the air that sometimes leads to him turning the ball over. And so that's what I'll say about that. Naby Keita, I gave a 6.8. I don't necessarily think he had a bad game, but he didn't necessarily wow like he did versus Inter Milan. And then for the forwards, it kind of goes for itself. Salah was absolutely brilliant. Without Trent Alexander-Arnold to really offer him any kind of overloads, he was kind of isolated, a little bit, and he was basically, he had Brandon Williams on skates with some of the dribbling that he did in that first half, and then what can you say? What can you say about that finish that he had? Just absolutely sublime. Mane didn't necessarily have the best game, though he was played more as a central striker, which he's not really used to. But I mean, what a fantastic bicycle kick that was. And he's been trying that for a while. So it was kind of cool to see him actually, finally pull that off. And then Diaz, almost likewise, just that whole front three actually worked a lot better than maybe I was even expecting, because they're both fluid in their movements. Mane was supposed to play, quote unquote striker, but he was often drifting a little bit. And from where Luis Diaz scored the goal, he made the run from the right side of the field to go to the center. And so, all in all, I couldn't be more excited about what they did. And then let's go over the subs. Thiago was absolutely excellent. He really changes the game pretty much anytime he comes on and gives that Liverpool midfield just such a different look. And then Origi came on and gave him a 6.8. Didn't necessarily do a whole lot, but just his presence, it gave Norwich, an extra guy in the box to essentially kind of keep their minds on, which I do think kind of opened up the space elsewhere. And so, yeah. And then some of the main events, crazy enough is Norwich did have some chances early in the game. I did mention that Pukki miss. Salah really did take Brandon Williams 1-on-1, and Ox did have that miss, unfortunately. But really the story of the game was Liverpool conceding first. I think it was Joe Gomez actually gave a poor back pass, and I forget who was supposed to receive it, but he didn't do a good job receiving it, and Norwich were able to break. They went long, and excuse me. Josh Sargent actually got the ball from the right side of the field and cut all the way over, and he actually did a pretty good job to find Rashica, and then Rashica did well to create a little space for himself and to try a speculative shot that unfortunately just deflected off Joel Matip. But some of the other points, Mane getting the bag, like I mentioned, which that couldn't have been more important when he got that goal, because there was starting to maybe be some doubts that things weren't going their way, and to get it in the 60th minute as opposed to like the 80th or the late 70th, I do think that really did rally everyone to go get that second and even strive for that third. And then I mentioned Diaz's really nice run on that third goal, but Henderson was also excellent. I mentioned that he had a good game just by himself, but he tapped it off with that great through ball that really it was maybe deserved that he finished with something like that, because he's quietly been maybe at the front end of some stick lately from fans, and so it was great to see him finally end with with something like that. And frankly, it was on the back of something like 30 consecutive passes in that movement, which was excellent. And then some of the things that I saw like tactically that maybe they could work on or improve. I do think I mentioned that Thiago kind of changes the games. Frankly, the reason why it's so important is he'll drop deep when Liverpool are trying to build from the back, and he's basically a player that Alisson will just specifically look for whenever he's being asked to pass from the back. And he does that because Thiago is just so calm on the ball. He rarely ever loses it himself, but he's also just very great at creating spaces for others. He will get the ball and turn and advance the ball upfield where maybe too often other guys will just kind of take too long on the ball. And so it's noticeable whenever he doesn't play. And I mentioned there was no Fabinho in this game, so Henderson played in that 6th role instead. And really, the only time that this hasn't necessarily worked out too great was maybe that Atletico game in that first leg in the Champions League, where it seemed Henderson was a little more reactive as opposed to maybe anticipating where the danger was. And it did. There were a couple times where Griezmann and Felix did kind of get the better of him, and so but all in all, it was still a solid day for him. And I do want to say that the danger is still there when teams do go over the top, and I don't necessarily feel too confident when Liverpool do play with Matip and Virgil. I feel like Konate offers a little more protection, though Konate, as young as he is, you can't necessarily ask him to play every game. So I do understand that, but it is one thing I am worried a little bit about with Leeds, because Leeds play a super open game themselves, but one thing they will do is they'll look to try to get that ball in behind that back line and try to get those wingers into space. And so it's something that Liverpool and Man City, I guess it's something that all the top teams kind of play these days, these high lines. But there is the danger there. And then I mentioned the death formation, and so as far as what to maybe expect on Wednesday, I am expecting Leeds to come out pretty motivated and play a little bit more like we saw in the second half than what we saw in the first. Rafinha hasn't necessarily been the best player of late since it's maybe the turn of the calendar, but he was linked to all these big moves, so maybe that's kind of messed with his head a little bit, because instead he's playing for the side that's honestly fighting relegation. But this is a stage where usually stars, even in funks, kind of do show up. So I am expecting him to have a pretty good game. Hopefully not too good, but we'll see. He also didn't start on Sunday, so there's motivation in that as well. But like I said, I do expect Leeds to play pretty hard, but without Calvin Phillips and Patrick Bamford, it's not necessarily the Leeds that we saw last year. And so it's one of the more poor defensive teams in the league. I mentioned that they are fighting relegation, and part of the reason is I think it's because they're missing someone like Calvin Phillips, who's just a really good DM. Frankly, he's maybe underrated, to be honest, because he's not just good at anticipating danger. He's just always around where maybe he's supposed to. Like, Leeds play so open, and he's good at closing gaps himself, and he's really good at picking up passes. I mean, he's got a great passing range. So yeah, I guess that said, I maybe expect maybe a close game, but I do expect maybe Liverpool to get kind of a bit like what we saw with Norwich, maybe to get maybe a late goal to win 3-1, to just kind of make it seem like it was more comfortable than it should be, just because Leeds play with so much space, and frankly that usually plays into the advantage of a team like Klopp. So anyways, that's what I have to say about that.